There is a kind of geometry that lives beneath ordinary sight, a silent architecture braided into the seams of your body. And when a certain inner alignment happens, you begin to see its lines. You don't need academic proof or someone else's permission to check it. You can verify it with your own hands, breath, and attention. Tonight, I will guide you through a simple, embodied check that many who have walked this path call an activation. If you feel even the slightest movement inside as we go, type the word recognition in the comments so others can find that same signal. Before we move to the body, let me frame what this is about in the fewest words I can. In a set of ancient writings discovered at Nag Hammadi, texts that sit outside canonical collections and that scholars continue to debate, there are descriptions of a human condition that track extremely well with the sensations we will explore. In that Gnostic model, the monad, the source, the originating fountain of consciousness, emanates fragments. Those fragments become lodged in a dense, constructed environment, a world shaped by a controlling intelligence sometimes called the demiurge, along with attendant forces often labeled archons. Within that interpretive frame, the visible cosmos and many of its structures operate like a veil, a set of filters that obscure the original signature. I say this not to assert a single history as absolute, but to offer a map that some lineages of wisdom have used. Source, fragmentation, a constructed system that hides origin. These are metaphors and models, and they are useful because they point to an actionable idea. The body holds marks of origin. The activation we will perform is less about believing a theory and more about verifying a sensation. Institutions in many eras tended to keep such methods in guarded forms because a direct method of self-recognition reduces dependency on intermediaries. That is a claim with historical echoes. Scholars note that some texts were excluded from dominant canons and that communities were dispersed. How one reads those circumstances is a matter of interpretation. Now, to the geometry itself. Imagine a triangle inside you. 3 vertices, 3 frequencies, 3 verifiable points. These are not abstract. They are tactile nodes you can check right now. I will describe each node, where to place your attention and your hand, the range of sensations people report, and the symbolic frequency each point holds. Between each description, I will invite you to touch and to breathe, so you can test for yourself. The first vertex I call origin. Locate the very base of your skull, the small hollow where skull becomes neck, just behind the hairline, where the spine meets the cranium. Place the pads of your fingers there and rest them gently. Don't press hard. Simple contact is enough. Many people report a soft difference there. A slight softness like a seal, a subtle warmth, a trace of breath, or a gentle pressure that feels like the entryway of something. Some feel nothing at first. Some feel a cool hollow or a faint hum. All of these responses are within the possible range. In the Gnostic vocabulary, this place is sometimes described as the seat through which the breath or spark of the source first registers in the body, a small signature left by origin. Take a slow, even inhale now and imagine breathing toward that point. Notice if that place yields anything at all. A shift in tension, a micropulse, an almost imperceptible opening. If you feel something, hold the attention there for a few breaths. If nothing appears, simply register the absence without judging it. Many people who later report vivid impressions first felt only a subtle answer at this location. The faintest of nods. That is enough. The second vertex is perception. Extend your hand now and look at the area on the outer edge between your little finger and your wrist, the soft line that runs from the base of the pinky down toward the ulna bone. Place the thumb of your opposite hand across that area and feel the skin and subcutaneous tissue. Some people notice a raised ridge or line. Others sense a thin current, a slight vibration, a prickling like tiny bells. For some, it feels like a gate. For others, like a lens. This point corresponds to a faculty we can call second sight. Not mystical in the theatrical sense, but a subtle tuning that notices the structural patterns beneath appearances. Move your fingers slowly along that outer line and listen with your skin. Breathe into the sensation. If you find a line or a subtle shift in tone, follow it with a fingertip. You are mapping a node. Take note. Many report that this spot is more sensitive when they are relaxed, when the jaw unclenches and the breath lengthens. It may be quieter or absent when you are hurried or anxious. That too is informative. Notice whether the sensation broadens into a narrow field or stays pinpointed. Each variation is a valid data point. The third vertex I call command. Bring your attention to the center of the sternum, just above the heart, where the breastbone begins, roughly at the place where you could rest a hand flat and feel the slight hollow before the breastbone widens. Gently press with the pads of your fingers, firm enough to feel tissue but not so firm as to cause discomfort. This is often described as the place from which declarations carry weight, a resonance of voice aligned with origin. Some people notice a subtle vibration here when they intend speech. Others feel a warmth or a quiet settling, like a key finding its lock. Place your hand there and breathe toward it. Say silently at first, a short phrase. I remember. Notice if there is a sympathetic pulse, a slight tightening, or conversely, a calm expansion. Some people report feeling the entire triangle, origin, perception, command, begin to relate, as if lines are being drawn between these points. Other people experience a clear sense in only one or two vertices. Again, the spectrum of experience is wide. What matters is your direct verification. Pause now and hold all three places in your mind: base of skull, outer hand between pinky and wrist, and center sternum. Imagine a triangle connecting them. See that triangle as a living line of resonance, a subtle circuit that can be tuned. This is the geometry we are naming. It is not a diagram on paper. It is an inner architecture you can feel as alignment, as a change in the sense that you are more coherently yourself. Keep that image as we move into a short, guided activation. Before we begin the activation, 2 quick practical notes. First, be gentle with yourself. If you have a history of heart conditions or acute chest pain, adapt by using light touch and avoid deep pressure. Seek medical advice when needed. Second, if you have ongoing mental health conditions, mind that intense altered states can feel destabilizing. Professional support is valid and wise. This practice is not a replacement for medical or psychological care. Okay, prepare for a somatic check, and then a single declarative activation. You will need a comfortable seat, your hands free, and enough privacy to speak aloud once. Begin by sitting tall with your feet grounded. Soften the jaw, relax the shoulders, and take 3 slow inhalations through the nose, exhaling slowly out the mouth. With the 4th in-breath, place your fingertips lightly at the base of your skull, the origin vertex. Breathe into that spot as if you are sending your breath to touch it. Hold gentle contact for about 30 seconds. If timing by seconds feels awkward, count in your mind. 101, 102, until 30. While your fingers rest there, notice any shifts, warmth, a small tingling, a sense of openness, or perhaps a blankness. All are valid. If intrusive thoughts arise, doubts that say, "This is imagination, this is nonsense," label them softly as thought and return to the sensation of the breath at the base of the skull. Do not argue with the thought. Witness it and come back to the body. Next, move your attention to the perception vertex. Place the thumb of your opposite hand along the outer edge between pinky and wrist. Again, breathe into the area. Scan slowly along that line. If you sense a ridge, follow it. If you feel a vibration, inhabit it. Hold this contact for another 30 seconds while your breath continues steady. Notice whether the field widens or narrows. If you catch a small noise in the mind, note, thought, and return to feeling with the skin. Now place both hands, one at the base of the skull, one on the outer hand line, and bring them together in sensation for several breaths, imagining the triangular line beginning to close. After 3 or 4 breaths, move both hands and rest a single hand over the command vertex at the sternum. Press gently and breathe into the sternum until you feel a slight resonance. This is the place from which you will speak. When you sense a low, settled readiness, whether vivid or faint, speak aloud the activation phrase with intention and clarity. The phrase I offer is 9 words. I remember source, I see, I speak as one. Say it once and listen. Then repeat it aloud a second time, into the sternum, allowing your voice to feel rooted in that center. Don't inflate the voice. Speak with small, honest force. If saying the words aloud is not possible, speak them internally with rhythm and heartbeat. After the second recitation, rest your hands where they feel most comfortable and breathe. Notice any small rearrangement in perception, a softening of resistance, a lightness behind the eyes, a narrowing of distraction, or perhaps a quiet clarity. Some people notice geometric impressions, lines, lattices, or a sense of nodes connecting things that before felt scattered. Others feel only calm. Any of these are legitimate first responses. Expect resistance. When a person begins to align with source signatures, certain mental habits can show up like static. In the Gnostic language, people often call this archontic interference. Sudden waves of intrusive skepticism, old shame, or fearful predictions about what you are doing. In plain terms, this is the mind's reflex to preserve known patterns. When these interruptions arise, follow 2 simple steps: notice and return. Notice means to name the thought without argument. Oh, there's skepticism, or that's fear. Give it the smallest possible attention, and then move your focus back to the physical point that anchors you, the base of skull, the handline, the sternum. Return means exactly that. Return your attention to the body and the breath. Repeat the activation phrase internally if the thoughts persist. Do not try to wrestle with or reason the thoughts away. Witness and redirect. This is not denial. It is a tactical practice of recentering. If, during this practice, you experience sensations that are overwhelming, disorienting, or cause distress, stop and seek appropriate care. Strong energetic responses can occur, and these are not inherently bad, but they may require guidance. If you are in a vulnerable mental health state, find a supportive professional or a trusted local resource. The work of inner recognition is a practice, and practices benefit from wise support when needed. After the activation, give yourself a few minutes of quiet. Sit with the triangle image in mind: base of skull, outer hand line, sternum. As you move through the next hours, pay attention to small changes. You might notice colors at the periphery, an increased sensitivity to patterns. Something as minor as the way light falls through window panes, repeating motifs in leaves, or a new sense that relationships have architecture. These are the first hints of the sacred geometry beginning to register in perception. It's important to emphasize that seeing geometry here is primarily metaphor and felt reality, a language to describe the sense that things now have vertices and relations rather than being mere flow. Some people will literally perceive patterns and lines. Others will experience shifts in clarity, a tightening of intention, or a newfound steadiness when speaking. Many report a sense of sovereignty, a movement from asking to declaring. All of these map to the same underlying change, the internal alignment between origin, perception, and command. You may ask, how soon will this be visible in daily life? The honest answer: it varies. For some, small changes are immediate. A delicate reorientation in how they move through social spaces, or a sudden sensitivity to where attention is placed. For others, the shift accumulates with practice and community reinforcement. The work here is not a one-off miracle. It is an opening that invites continued recognition and refinement. The geometry, once glimpsed, tends to expand, first inward, then outward into the way you relate with others and with the world's forms. There will be moments when old structures attempt to reassert themselves. The voice that tells you this is fantasy. The memory that says you are not entitled to that posture. The system that prefers you remain a supplicant rather than a declarant. Gnostic sources frame these as systemic controls. Other frameworks speak of conditioning and social patterning. Whatever vocabulary you prefer, the practical method is the same. Witness, return to the body, and speak from the sternum. Sovereignty grows through repeated embodied reclamation. If, after doing this exercise, you felt even a hint of movement, a warmth, a line, a settled clarity, type recognition below. That single word is a waypoint for others. It signals that someone else in this space found a contact and helps build a thread of communal evidence. We are not creating a proof in the academic sense. We are forming a network of subjective verifications that help one another trust the process. Looking ahead, this activation is the opening of a series. Once the triangle becomes a habitual structure inside you, the geometry can be mapped onto practices of speech, attention, and communal ritual. In future sessions, we will explore how to translate the triangle's alignment into conversational sovereignty, into noticing the architecture of relationships, and into subtle, energetic practices that do not promise worldly favors, but that strengthen your capacity to act from origin rather than from reaction. Before we close, I want to return to a caution and a blessing. Caution. This line of work can stir deep material, memories, grief, joy, and also disorientation. If you find emotions or images intensifying in a way that feels disruptive, please reach out for grounded support. Blessing. If you are willing to return, to breathe into the three nodes, and to witness the thoughts that rise without getting entangled, you are practicing an ancient form of remembering that has always depended on lived verification, rather than blind belief. There is a tender dignity to this practice. It honors the body as a record of origin and the voice as a place of declaration. It teaches that perception can be trained not only with the eyes but with the skin, the breath, and the sternum's resonance. When you begin to see the geometry, you will notice a different tempo to life. Patterns feel less arbitrary. Alignments suggest choices. You feel less like a passenger and more like a cartographer of your own inner map. If this message landed for you, subscribe to follow the activation series. We will go deeper, mapping variations of the triangle, exploring collective signature work, and offering practices for anchoring this geometry in community. For now, rest in what you found. Breathe into the three vertices whenever you need to recenter. If something inside whispered yes as you practiced, write recognition in the comments so others can follow that signal. We are building a quiet network of people who remember. May your breath find its seal at the base of the skull. May your hand trace the line of true perception. And may your voice speak from the sternum with the authority of origin. Until the next activation, hold the triangle lightly. Not as a rigid rule, but as a living, reconfiguring architecture that begins to tune everything you touch.